I'm Clyde Lewis, and welcome to Ground Zero Behind the Scenes. Today, of course, we're talking about the shooting that happened in Aurora, Colorado. Of course, James Holmes, the man who was accused of killing 12 people and wounding some 70 or 80 more people. It's very fascinating when a crime takes on what I call esoteric overtones, or overtones of the occult. You know, I know a lot of other talk show hosts and a lot of other people will say it's a false flag event, but trust me, the bodies weren't even cold, and they were saying this. We're still looking into who might have trained this guy. He had $20,000 worth of ordnance that he was using, and also booby traps in his apartment. We know that this is pretty strange. The whole account of what happened is over the top, but as I said, there's meaningful coincidence in everything that happens with this case. What I'm looking at is I'm looking at the numbers, I'm looking at the words, I'm looking at the images, I'm looking at everything that has to do with this whole case, and I see this as some sort of act that takes place with something called the cosmic trickster. We're all subjected to the cosmic trickster. It's just another word for the devil, another word for Lucifer, another word for the guy who wants to play these jokes on us. We have to basically be subjected to this gallows humor that's going on, and irony that takes place within cases such as these. And as I said before, you're taking a look at it, you take a look at the case with how the numbers all fall together, how the images all fall together, and you're going to find that this case is a lot more sinister and creepy when you look at it from an occult perspective, and that's what we're going to try to do today on the show. First of all, I want to comment about the numbers that are associated with this case. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the graphic, and I'm going to point some things out to you. As we all know, the killer burst into the theater wearing a gas mask and unleashed tear gas in a torrent of indiscriminate gunfire. It happened at the Century 16 Theaters. It was cinema number 9, and it happened on July 20th, 7/20. Now, it happened 13 years after the Columbine shootings and 16 months after the Tucson shootings, where Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords was wounded, and Chief Judge John Roll, of course, and 9-year-old Christina Taylor Greene was killed. Now, as I said before, let's take a look at some of these occult overtones. Let's look at the 9 sequences associated with the case. Now, we know that the number 9 is a well-known satanic number. In fact, Anton LaVey, the head of the Church of Satan, says that it's a satanic number. It's a number of marked death. It's about the forces of destruction. The number 9 means an end. Even Aleister Crowley said the same thing about the number 9. Well, no matter what is done through the most complex multiplication systems of the number 9, it ends the final equation with the number 9. So let's take a look at the 9 sequences. The shooting took place in theater number 9. Now, it happened on 7/20. If you take away the 0 from the equation, the numbers 7 and 2 add up to 9. It's also coincidental that one of the Dark Knight shooter victims, Alex Sullivan, was celebrating his 27th birthday. Of course, the 27 forms another 7 plus 2, that equals 9. In fact, there were 3 male victims that were age 27. We had James Sullivan, Matt McQuinn, and Navy sailor John Larimer. One of those guys, Matt McQuinn, actually threw himself in front of his girlfriend to take the bullets for her. So we've got a number 9, a number 9, and a number 9. It's kind of like that Beatles tune where you play it backwards. It says, "Turn me on, dead man. Turn me on, dead man." So consider for the moment that there's a satanic conspiracy going on, that something is happening that's just bizarre. If you take a look at the Dark Knight shooting and how it took place 16 months after the Gifford shooting in Tucson, and you take a look at the Century 16 cinemas in Aurora, Colorado, it happened 11 years after the attacks of September 11th. So if a century is 100 years old and we add 16, we get 116. That's 116. Take 116, turn it upside down, and you get 9/11. Now, at the Gabrielle Gifford shooting, Christina Taylor Greene was killed. Now, she was 9 years old when she died, and she was born on September 11th, 2001, or 9/11. So we see that the shooting in Colorado at the theater happened 13 years after Columbine. We all know the number's about 13. In fact, James Holmes, the shooter, was born December 13th, 1987. So we take a look at the 13 Illuminati number. Maybe it is a great leap to get into the rabbit hole, but as you can see, a lot of strange things are happening with this case. And you take a look at how John Holmes thought that he was the Joker, and it's odd because the Drudge Report on Sunday threw this ad up that said Joker kills 12, and it had
the Heath Ledger Joker saying, why so serious? It was just really bizarre.
Another strange coincidence is that prior to the shootings, I remember being in the studio, and I guess Lars Larson has a subscription to Entertainment Weekly. What had happened is that Entertainment Weekly showed up in the studio, and I saw this, and it was still there after the shootings. It says right here, Batman's Killer Finale. This was published before the shootings took place in Aurora, Colorado, which I find fascinatingly cryptic and synchronistic that the killer finale happened. Now, I bought this, my own copy, at the store, and as I was waiting there in line to cash out with this and pay for it, the guy that was looking at the magazine said, "Are they doing a story on the killer in Colorado?" I said, "No, this was published prior to it." And he said, "Wow, that is bizarre." And it certainly is bizarre, especially when you take a look at all the weird synchronicities that go with this. It's almost as if some intelligence is behind this evil. So you look at that, and also you look at what the Dark Knight means and Aurora means. It's kind of an interesting thing because you look at the Dark Knight, and let's talk about homonymous ways of looking at sentences. If you change the Dark Knight to read the Dark N-I-G-H-T as opposed to K-I-N-I-G-H-T, what you have is you have the Dark Knight Rises, and then you see Aurora. Now, what does Aurora mean? Well, Aurora is the goddess of light. She's the goddess of the new morning, the golden dawn. She is also in some way related to Venus, the star of the morning, Lucifer. So the Dark Knight rises, and then comes the golden dawn, the change, the revision of all things, a new hope, hopefully. So you take a look at the Dark Knight rising, Aurora, and the new light that happens afterwards, or the new order, or whatever you want to call it, if that's what you want to believe. Synchronicity is nothing more than meaningful coincidence. It's not scientific, it's more than random, and sometimes people like to say it's cognitive bias. Well, cognitive bias to what effect? I'm just mentioning these things to let you know that the trickster, the Joker, or whatever you want to call him, is an artist. He paints a tableau of a nightmare, and we have to decipher it and figure it out. It just goes to show you that things such as this have some sort of intelligence behind them, some sort of spiritual intelligence that you can't explain. There's some people that have the cognitive bias that this is all some sort of false flag, that James Holmes was a mind-controlled stooge. He did work with neuroscience. His father also worked in the neurosciences and computer programming, where they wanted to mingle the human mind with computer algorithms. In fact, some of those algorithms were being used to trace money exchanges and all kinds of other strange things that are very top secret. And this is why we have to look into what this is all about, because there have been other cases where we've seen now copycat situations, like for example in Biddeford, Maine, where this gentleman here was involved with going to a theater with loaded guns. He had the same type of arsenal that James Holmes had, and police had stopped him because he wanted to shoot a theater full of patrons that were seeing the Dark Knight film. Another thing that's interesting too is that I went back to 2009, where there was actually a soldier who dressed up as the Joker, and he went out and slit the throat of one of his colleagues. Now, he was at Fort Eustis. Fort Eustis is well known in Virginia as a place where they're using hypnosis, or the idea of inserting thoughts using what are known as meta walks or hypnosis walks, where they're putting people into trances and they program them with certain ideas and certain types of metaphors. We had on the program Elena Freeland, who said that there's actually something called a Batman program, where they're actually using Batman TV shows from the 60s, the comic books. There's actually a game called Arkham City, where they're in the Monarch Theater torturing people and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, where the Joker's in a theater doing what he does. It's just some peculiar stuff going on with the James Holmes case, and I think the more we peel at this, it's like an onion, and we completely are peeling away at bits and pieces, and hopefully we'll find a solution eventually. But in the meantime, there's just some synchronicities I want to point out to you, and so I did that for you today. I'm Clyde Lewis, and this has been Ground Zero Behind the Scenes.